What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Fantasy Football Talk. We are currently without Blake Schnieders. He is out on a double date, which is completely fine. We're going to let him do his thing. Tonight, I'm going to be running the show. Lucas Murphy, obviously in charge of the Beat of KC. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking fantasy football as we are getting closer and closer to the regular season of football. We've gone through all the preseason. We're seeing some injuries happen, and we're going to start to really kind of break down some of the things that are going on because a lot of people are hot and heavy when it comes to their fantasy football drafts. So today's position breakdown is going to be running backs. And really, there are a lot of different variations out there. You obviously, and we've talked about this before on this show, you obviously have your auction style. You have your snake draft. You have, depending on how else you would do it, there's a couple other ways. But we're going to be breaking it down really from a auction style draft and if you would be doing a traditional snake draft. So going to be talking about the running back position like I stated. I've actually done about 3 fantasy drafts myself. I've done tons of mocks. And it seems to be this year that you're getting a stretch, a run in the first round where just a slew of running backs are going. I've been a part of a few drafts where the first 8 picks were just consecutive running backs taken, which it kind of surprises me a little bit, but in a way it does not. Once you kind of start to get out of that first tier, really truly that first elite group of running backs, you kind of start to see where you get some split carries with a lot of guys. So I completely understand. So we're going to dive right into this, start talking. Obviously, the consensus number one, and I've seen probably 99% of the time taken, is going to be Christian McCaffrey. C-Mac is coming back from his injuries. He really didn't play a ton, if hardly at all, last year. We know that team has kind of revamped a lot of things. They go out and get a new quarterback in Sam Darnold. They really kind of solidified some things at that receiver spot with DJ Moore. They do lose Curtis Samuels, but they were able to add Terrence Marshall in the draft. So really kind of getting some things done there. Just a few questionable spots on that offensive line. I did see Cam Irving might be the starting left tackle. Here in his time here in Kansas City, Cam Irving struggled mightily. So that is a bit of a concern for me, but it's C-Mac. I think he's going to be a very good safe haven for Sam Darnold there. So completely understand when C-Mac is clicking, when he is healthy, C-Mac is an absolute monster. In an auction style draft, they project C-Mac getting $62, which in a lot of cases, that's a huge chunk of change right there with a bye week in 13. So you have a lot of time for C-Mac to get a lot of good contributions, get that week 13 bye week, and it's later into the season. So, a really, really good pick there for sure. Now, number 2, this is where it's starting to get shaken up, and I've seen this a couple times in the drafts. So they have as a consensus of Dalvin Cook there at number 2, but I've also seen Alvin Kamara, or Kamara, some people say, go at 2 as well. So we're going to talk Dalvin Cook first. Obviously, very, very good there in Minnesota. It's just a monster when it comes to running the football. Very good complementary to the passing game that they have there with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. And then you got Irv Smith as the tight end. Very good, really just complements them very well. And then to assist with Kirk Cousins, I like Dalvin Cook. I really do. They definitely look to run the football. But there's obviously those times where they're throwing the football because of the weapons they have. But Dalvin Cook definitely eats, and I could see him being at 2. But I also could see Kamara being there at number 2 as well, which we're going to go ahead and talk about. He is coming in to this season with a new quarterback. They did announce that Jameis Winston would be the starter. And it's Alvin Kamara. He's going to be feasting on the ball, whether it's catching it for touchdowns or it's running and pounding the rock. We know what he is going to do down there, and they're in a pretty good division. Super Bowl champs are coming out of that division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So really kind of like what Kamara offers. If you are looking for that dual threat, if you are in a PPR league, that is definitely one to look at, especially if you're in the top 3 picks. Now moving on, they have Saquon Barkley there, but as of late, I've seen Derrick Henry kind of going. I've actually seen Saquon Barkley drop all the way to 8 and 9 sometimes. Guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler, and Aaron Jones have, and even times Jonathan Taylor has jumped ahead of Saquon Barkley, which is very interesting. But we'll go ahead and talk about Saquon, even though he's kind of been falling in drafts. Saquon obviously coming back from that ACL injury, definitely is going to assist and help out with Daniel Jones, and I think that's what's big. He is the workhorse. Hopefully, if he is healthy, you're going to probably see him get the rock. I would expect that they would slowly work him back in. They did go out and get Kenny Golladay. They still got Sterling Shepard. They still got Evan Ingram, and they still got a few other guys. I think Darius Slayton's on the other side. So they really do have some weapons there. And I think with Saquon Barkley coming back, it really is going to be a lot of pressure relieved off of Daniel Jones. He's still going to have to be completing those throws. But what Saquon does is he takes the ball probably 20 to 25 times and isn't causing Daniel Jones to throw the football. And there's also those times where if he is throwing the football, it's dump passes to Saquon Barkley for screens or whatever it may be. So I like that Saquon is back in this offense. I definitely think he's going to be getting a lot of production again. And I think they're going to look to him quite often, especially with, that division being very weak. So the next one we'll talk about is Derrick Henry, Superman down there in Tennessee. I guess he's not really down there for me. It's more direct shot to the east. I really like Derrick Henry. I think that he, I had him a few years back, and I would say it was very frustrating because you could see what, like, the type of year he had last year was there. It's just like they just couldn't do certain things for him, and that's what they solely relied on. I think now what is special is you can game plan for Derrick Henry, but then they can also change the game plan because they went out and traded for Julio Jones. They have A.J. Brown. They're able to do different variations of things. They went out and got Josh Reynolds, so they can pass the ball if need be. So really the game plan, Derrick Henry is going to get fed the rock. It's just how much on certain games. So if you game plan for receivers and you really change your scheme up to fit for receivers and trying to put pressure on Tannehill, they may just hand the ball off and let Derrick Henry just ground and pound for 200 yards and however many touchdowns. So I really think it's going to be tough at times to scheme and plan against Tennessee. If Derrick Henry can stay healthy, it's definitely going to make it that much more challenging just because, like I just said, you have the receiver threat, but then you also have the ability to just run it and run it and run it. So I like Derrick Henry for sure. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these top backs that I've already talked about go in the very, very tops of all drafts. And that's just because what they're capable of doing when they're clicking. To kind of go back, Dalvin Cook has a bye week of 7. It looks like his auction draft his auction draft money value is $59. Saquon Barkley's bye week is 10, and he is valued at $59. Kamara is $56, bye week of 6. Sometimes it's okay to get those bye weeks out of the way. And bye week 6 is probably the earliest that I've seen. And so, you're going to get those stuff. You're going to get them out of the way for sure. Derrick Henry is bye week 13, very similar to Christian McCaffrey. And now we're going to kind of get on to Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke really struggled last year. His quarterback goes down. Dak Prescott snaps his ankle, which was very gruesome. And really from there, Zeke kind of let himself get out of control. His weight was a concern. And his ability to hold on to the football was an extremely, extremely concerning situation. We saw that. I can't even remember who the opponent was, but it's like anytime the ball was handed off to Zeke, he was fumbling it. And you could just see McCarthy over on the sideline starts trying to figure out what is going on with their featured back. Zeke definitely put in the work in the offseason. He lost a ton of weight. People are saying he's back to like freshman year Ohio State weight, maybe a little bit more, but he's ready to run the football. They are getting Dak back. Still some questions around the shoulder, but I think that is what is needed, is at least to have the presence and the ability to throw the football and then know that you're going to give it to Zeke. If they knew, because last year they had Andy Dalton. They had the red rifle, and you forced pressure and caused him to throw the football, and you would get turnovers and really kind of cause havoc with that team. Because if they were running the football, you would basically know and you could stop it and force, again, the red rifle to throw the football. So they really had some issues there last year, and I think now that Zeke has kind of moved past that, I really look for him to be very good this year. I think he's playing to kind of revitalize his career and revitalize kind of what he's about. So I expect Zeke to go off. He's expected to sell for $51 in auction style, and they have a bye week in 7. Now, 2 players that I kind of would consider almost the same, except I think Aaron Jones is going to run the football a lot more than Austin Eckler might. I think Austin Eckler is more of a pass catcher to a rusher. And so I would consider them kind of almost hand in hand, just Aaron Jones a little bit. They have Austin Eckler at 7, and then they have Aaron Jones at 8. I would go ahead and flip those. It looks like Eckler's going for $50 in auction style by week 7, and Aaron Jones is $45 in a bye week of 13. I think Aaron Jones is going to get fed a lot like we've seen. They do have A.J. Dillon there to back him up. But I really like what Aaron Jones has been able to do when healthy. He's just been a monster, and he's been able to complement Aaron Rodgers very well, especially when they needed to run the football and even, do some dump passes and maybe even a little bit of some screens. They've been doing very well with what Aaron Jones is expected to do, and he's really sneakily been putting up some fantasy numbers, and I think people are starting to catch on for sure because he's been going in the top 10 of a lot of fantasy drafts for sure. Moving on to kind of a little bit talk about Austin Eckler, has been injury prone. We saw a lot of Joshua Kelly. We saw some other backs last year. I really kind of expect Austin Eckler to have a bounce back year to really kind of assist with Justin Herbert. And I think Eckler has the ability. We know Eckler was a big chunk of the reason why they got rid of Melvin Gordon. I mean, yes, Melvin Gordon really wanted a monster contract, but they were seeing that Eckler was able to perform and do what he needed to do at a much cheaper cost. And then obviously Eckler goes and gets hurt, and then there was a lot of question marks. Gordon goes to Denver, really hasn't been the same since. So, just a crazy, crazy situation there. Number 9, we're seeing the former Wisconsin Badger, Jonathan Taylor. I really like Jonathan Taylor in Indy. I think they finally have at least solidified a lead back there in Indy. And that's Jonathan Taylor. We know previously in the past they've been very similar to what the Patriots do, having multiple running backs, 3 to 4 even. And so I think now that we understand Jonathan Taylor is the lead back, and then you got other guys kind of trickling in behind him, maybe catching a ball here and there, running the ball here and there. That's okay, but Jonathan Taylor is going to get fed a lot of the time. He is going for $44 in auction style of a bye week of 14. Now, one that I think is kind of low on the totem pole is going to be Nick Chubb. I've been hearing a lot of things about Nick Chubb. Obviously, his counterpart is going to be Kareem Hunt, former Chief. Kareem Hunt has really kind of, I guess you could say, done some things as well. But I think Nick Chubb has a lot to prove again. He runs with an attitude. He steamrolls people. And I definitely, I think Nick Chubb has earned a little bit. I think there's a lot of things that go into this as well. He does definitely take a lot of pressure off of Baker Mayfield. Baker really has a lot of pressure. This is I do believe, a contract year for Baker. Odell Beckham's coming back looking extremely good, making those one-hand catches again. Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper. Their offensive line is getting better. Their defense, honestly, is getting very good. But back to Nick Chubb, having the ability to run the football, especially in this division, I think is key. And I can't remember to quote it directly, but they were saying that he has the easiest rushing schedule this year. So that's something to take into consideration too. If his schedule is easily set up for a running back, then that's somebody to definitely take a look at. Auction style draft, $43, a bye week of 13. So we're seeing some of these running backs having very late bye weeks, which are pretty interesting. We're going to kind of start grouping some people together just because I can't go over every single back. We've been going for about 15 minutes. So, one that's surprising to me is Clyde EdwardsHelaire at 14. We were just at 10 with Nick Chubb. They got Antonio Gibson at Washington. They're at 11. Najee Harris at 12. Joe Mixon at 13. And then Clyde. I definitely think Clyde is a little bit lower than I would suspect, especially with the high-powered offense that he's involved with, the offensive line being revamped. He is the lead back. We understand that. Him and Patrick Mahomes and obviously the rest of the team. I think Clyde is due for a breakout. We know that he had, I think it was a groin injury last year and maybe some ankle injuries. We know that he's definitely had an ankle injury this preseason game, but appears to be ready to go for the first week. I look for him to not only get fed the football on the ground, but I expect him to also hit him in the passing game as well. I think Clyde is going to break out and have a pretty solid year. So I would actually put him at 11. I get what they're trying to say with Antonio Gibson, but I think that there's some other things that they're going to have to factor in. If they're behind a lot in games, then they're going to be throwing the football. They're not necessarily going to be handing it off to Antonio Gibson. Yes, he can catch, but when you're behind and you're looking to come back and stuff, you're probably going to be looking for receivers and tight ends and things like that. So, that's one reason why I would probably put Clyde there. Najee Harris is just a monster. I think a little bit skinnier form of Derrick Henry, honestly. I think Najee Harris is definitely one to keep your eye on. James Conner leaves and heads to the Cardinals there in Arizona. And, Najee Harris is the featured back. He's ready to roll. I've heard multiple times that he's going to get the rock probably 30 to 30-something times. It's going to be interesting to see. I look forward to it. If it's just a question mark, their line started to fall apart. We see Villanueva leave. We see some other guys. Pouncey, I think, retired. So we're seeing kind of some revamped of that line. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think Najee will definitely kind of, for his first year, run the heck out of that football. Their bye week is going to be 7, so a very kind of middle tier early on bye week. He's going for $40 in auction style drafts. One that I think is kind of a question mark, just because injuries, and I don't know if we've ever really truly seen the full potential, and that's Joe Mixon. Coming out of Oklahoma was pretty kind of exciting. Goes to Cincinnati and really kind of hasn't just been that flashy, at least from a fantasy football perspective. They go out, draft Jamar Chase. They got Tyler Boyd. They got my guy T. Higgins from Clemson. So Joe Burrow, they're going to be looking to throw the football. Samples as a tight end. I do think they got another tight end. But they're definitely going to be looking to throw the football, and I think Joe Mixon is more of a complimentary, assist. Will get the run here and there, but I think majority of the time, I think they're going to be a highly powered passing team. So it'll be interesting to see. I really honestly have not considered Joe Mixon in any of my drafts, but I also have not been in a position for him to be on one of my draft boards. So I can't really say how I would approach Joe Mixon. I think for him, out of this entire thing, he's kind of my question mark, honestly. And I'm just being real. DeAndre Swift is coming in at 15. I'm staying away from him. I like him as a player. I liked him coming out of Georgia. I don't like the offense. I don't like Detroit. It's going to be crazy to see how they even play football, just because there's so many things that are just unknown. They don't have, Stafford anymore. They got Jared Goff. Is the offensive line going to be good? What is their game plan? They don't really have good receivers. They cut Bashard Perriman today. So there's just so many things that are going on there, and just so many question marks. Now, number 16 is David Montgomery out of Chicago. I really like that pick. I've actually taken him in 2 of my drafts. I like David Montgomery. He's really had some pretty solid years coming out of Iowa State. I really do like David Montgomery. My only thing is Tariq Cohen is coming back and should be healthy. And they also have a former Kansas City Chief in Damian Williams. Obviously, cuts can happen, and we're going through that phase. Tomorrow should be the final cuts, and we should see the 53s all come together. It'll be interesting to see if they keep him. Khalil Herbert, former Kansas Jayhawk, has been running the football good for them, I believe. I've seen a lot of good stuff with them. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe he ends up becoming a cut. If not, I definitely believe David Montgomery is the featured back. He's got a auction value of $32, bye week of 10. And like I said, I've taken him in a couple of my drafts. I really like David Montgomery, and I think for what he's able to do and provide, I really like that. I've also taken him more in like the third round, fourth round type areas. And so mostly third, I would say. But I like David Montgomery. I definitely like him in Chicago. I think if Justin Fields eventually takes over, he'll really assist and be able to undo the pressure that is put on, Fields expected to throw the football and things like that. So I like David Montgomery there. Coming in at number 17 is Miles Sanders, Philadelphia. I'm not a big fan of Philadelphia running backs. So I really don't have a whole lot to say about him. He's auctioned going for $29 bye week of 14. I don't think when you even have question marks around who your quarterback's going to be, it should 100% be Jalen Hurts. But then they go out and trade for Gardner Minshew, and they have some good weapons on the outside. Jalen Reagor, they go and draft Devonta Smith. They still have that deadly duo of tight ends there, Zach Ertz, and then Dallas Goedert. So their big questions are what really kind of is their game plan. Like, you should put your eggs in a basket, see what you got in Jalen Hurts. I mean, guy was a stud at both places he was at. Give him the ability to go out and run an offense, and it's like they just choose not to. Doug Peterson kind of shafted him too. We'll let him run out, run a couple plays, and then pull him off the field. And then now, you kind of put all your belief into him, show that you're going to do it, and then you go out and trade for Gardner Minshew, and it's like, what statement does that send to Jalen Hurts? Like, I've worked my what off, and now you're making a trade for a quarterback, and I kind of question that. So it'll definitely be interesting, but I'm going to stay away from Philadelphia running backs for sure. Number 29, I am not really going to talk about. J.K. Dobbins, he tore his ACL along with his LCL, and he is going to be out for a while. I've heard from a few people that it was a life-threatening career-ending injury type thing. Sometimes that happens to people. They're saying he's probably going to be out a lot longer than a year is what I've heard. And so J.K. Dobbins is definitely not going to be someone you draft this year. And if you've already drafted him, you might as well drop him and see what you can pick up. Not really his fault, obviously. It just was a crazy injury, and it stinks. Chris Carson in Seattle. I've had Chris Carson a few times. That's kind of you're starting to get in that tier that's kind of an interesting, really kind of place. I think Chris Carson would be a good flex or really kind of a good second running back if you went, like, let's say you went receiver heavy and then maybe a tight end, or maybe you went receiver, tight end, or maybe just dual tight ends or whatever it may be. I think Chris Carson would be a good, even a good starter, but also really the main thing that I'm looking at is him to be like your second running back in a league. So Chris Carson's definitely going to be a good back for Seattle. They have DK Metcalf, they have Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson, and then really outside of that, those are your weapons, your main weapons. So, Chris Carson may get fed a lot, but he's also been injured, and we've seen a lot of different running backs come through there and filter through Seattle. So it'll be interesting to see, can he stay healthy? And if so, what is going to be expected of him? The next one on the list is number 20, and that's Josh Jacobs with the Las Vegas Raiders. I would say I like Josh Jacobs. I think he runs very well. Definitely runs with an attitude. I definitely, again, think he's a great potential number one, but definitely a number two back. Going for auction is $21 and bye week of 8, and Chris Carson was $26 bye week of 9. My only thing is that if Josh Jacobs truly was your number one, and you wanted to maybe compliment him with somebody that's okay, they went out and got Kenyan Drake, which kind of was the lead back for Arizona last year. Maybe he's willing to accept and become that number two. We're just going to have to see how that combo really works out. And I'm sure that they've already talked about that, and I'm sure Gruden's talked about that, but definitely would be interesting to see how that duo works together. But I do like Josh Jacobs definitely as a number two. Now, this list that I'm reading off you really was kind of created much before some trades happened. So Darrell Henderson was up there at 21. He is a bye week of 11, auction style $21. But they did actually go and make a trade, and which was very, very interesting. So we'll actually talk about that once we get down a little bit lower. So the reason I bring that up too, though, is Darrell Henderson would have been the lead back for the Rams. But I still think he kind of is a compliment, will be a number 2 back for the Rams. So maybe a very deep flex, maybe a bench option for your team. Or if you're in a deep league, like a 12-team league, maybe he's one that you would pick up there. Myles Gaskin obviously comes on and is just a flash in the pan, a freak down there in Miami. Same situation. We're starting to get in that group of people. I would consider Chase Edmonds probably a good number 2 in a 10-team, probably a really, really good 2, even a flex in a 12-team. I like Chase Edmonds, Myles Gaskin, pretty good options. They're seeing the offensive line. He's going to go well with Tua. Chase Edmonds going to fit well. Finally being the featured back down there in Arizona. Like I said, you see, oh man, where did he go? Kenyan Drake leave and go to the Raiders. So you're really seeing Chase Edmonds. Travis Etienne has been announced out for the full year. Foot injury, I believe. So your number 1 back is going to be James Robinson, who surprisingly is down at number 28, who is actually below a few backups, which is crazily interesting to me. Like Travis Etienne, I think, should have been down. Kareem Hunt probably should have been down a little bit lower. Javonte Williams, who was drafted by Denver, should have been down a little bit lower. And then you got guys like Mike Davis, who's just a ground and pound machine there in Atlanta. And you got Javonte Williams getting drafted this year to the Denver Broncos, who will be behind, starting out probably Melvin Gordon, but it'll be interesting. Maybe they end up making him the starter. I've heard some rumors that Gordon might get cut from the Broncos. Just be very, very interesting. Then we see James Robinson, Damian Harris, the featured back there in New England. At least they say he is. Raheem Mostert, Zach Moss, Leonard Fournette, David Johnson, Kenyan Drake, James Conner, Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter, Jamal Williams going there to Detroit from Green Bay. A.J. Dillon back up there in Green Bay like we talked about earlier. Ronald Jones, Naheem Hines. Now, I'm going to kind of touch on some backs in Tampa Bay. They have Leonard Fournette, but they also have a very, very good runner in Ronald Jones. It's just a very interesting situation. I think it's very interesting just because, if they split carries, it's like, I think it's just crazy to me. Leonard Fournette is ground and pound, can catch the football at times, where Ronald Jones is just a monster all around. I think he can do both as well. I went ahead and drafted Ronald Jones in one of my drafts. I had the opportunity to get Fournette, but I just feel like Ronald Jones is a lot more versatile, where I think, Leonard Fournette's going to kind of try to run you over. So just a very interesting kind of duo down there. I do think they have another back too. Giovanni Bernard maybe. So yeah, just a really crazy situation. But then you get guys like Naheem Hines, who's a backup for Indianapolis, more of a pass catcher. And then you got Trey Sermon drafted to the San Francisco 49ers this year. Devin Singletary, the lead back in Buffalo. But then you got, other guys there that are going to be tremendous, like Zach Moss and so many others. So you're starting to get, like I said earlier, once you get past that top tier of running backs and you really start to get into the guys that split carries, you can see why, there's a group and then there's just a massive group. And this massive group is just a lot of split carries and some unknowns, like Zach Moss and, really Devin Singletary. They could probably split games. One could do one time, one could do something the other time. It's just going to be interesting to see how that's handled. Same with like San Francisco, Raheem Mostert, and then you got Trey Sermon getting drafted, and then you got a few other guys there. It's just going to be very interesting. New England, obviously, it's just a very interesting situation there. They did lose like Rex Burkhead, but basically Houston Texans created that. They got like Melvin Ingram, they got Phillip Lindsay, they got David Johnson. I think they got another back that I'm not even mentioning. So an absolute ton of people there in Houston. Now, the back that I was talking about that is actually down at 59 and is kind of fell off the radar and is really kind of behind some third strings, but was traded, and I expect to be the lead back out in LA, is going to be Sony Michel. When he went to New England, I mean, that was a big deal. Sony Michel out of Georgia, I mean, really did some things, but him being traded because of the injury to Cam Akers out in Los Angeles, I think that's a good fit. And then you obviously have Matthew Stafford, you have Robert Woods, you have Cooper Kupp. I mean, so you got a ton of weapons. I think Michel will actually fit in pretty well and definitely be a great complement to what they're trying to do out there. I really like Sony Michel out there. Honestly, guys, the rest, though, is it gets to a point where if you can get them, you're getting them because you're either a 12-team league or you just need depth. So I would continue to go over some of these, but really it's kind of going to be dependent upon what style of draft you do. So, but yeah, I think that there's a lot of great running backs, and I really do kind of want to recap. You know, like I said, I've done about 3 to, I believe, 4. I have 3 more lined up, and in the 3 to 4 that I've done, I would say honestly the first 8 picks, it seems like every time there's maybe been 1 out of the 4 where I've seen a receiver go in that top 8, and then it just slewed together more and more running backs. So running backs are definitely a hot commodity. Like I said, probably before J.K. Dobbins got hurt, I could say probably 15 backs you could probably honestly pick, and then you would have your options. I think in one draft I really went back and looked, and like 15 out of 22 picks were running backs. So you're seeing some guys fall. Like I never in my mind or imagined, except for age, truly age, would I see Julio Jones fall to like a third or even a 4th round. It's just crazy to me because in all the years I've done fantasy football, like Julio Jones has been like a top pick, like at least a top 10 pick in every fantasy year. And this year he's actually fallen down. But you're seeing other guys pop in there, and running backs are, like I said, a hot commodity, especially now that you got more dual threat options. A lot of people play PPR. So really running backs are a significant piece. If you can get a really good running back and then start going to town with your receivers and then throw in a good complementary, like I said, like a Chase Edmonds, maybe a Myles Gaskin, a Chris Carson as your number 2, that's where you really got some motor going, and that's where it's probably going to be a good season for you. We've kind of already gone over the quarterbacks, but that's another kind of interesting situation. I've seen a lot of quarterbacks, even like the top tier guys, like we've talked about, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, really go in like the 3rd or 4th round, which blows my mind. I get what your thinking is. Like they're great players, and I will not discredit that by any means. But I was able to get Aaron Rodgers in one league in like the 7th round. That's what I like to see, because I've even seen guys like Ryan Tannehill, Matthew Stafford fall to like even in some rounds, 10, 9 even. And it's just extremely interesting to see guys like that that are probably going to be at least somewhat consistent fall that low. So really wanted to break this down to you guys. I know Blake was not able to attend tonight. We'll get him back on here. We have to have free time. We have to be able to go out and do our stuff. So I do appreciate you guys checking out this fantasy talk, definitely breaking down the running backs tonight. I'll be interested to hear you guys in the comments section. Let me know what you guys think about the running backs. Is there anyone specifically that you guys been drafting, and what's your reasoning for drafting running backs? If you draft running backs first, what's your reasoning behind that? Hit me in the comments section. Let me know so I can respond. And that's the whole point of this, honestly, is just to get that collaboration, the communication out there. We're all trying to be great fantasy managers and have a great time with fantasy football, guys. The season is approaching quickly, and that's what it's about. It's just about enjoying football, and this is definitely a way to do that and compete with friends, or maybe take it a lot more serious than just playing with your friends. So, but I do appreciate you guys checking out the Beat of Casey. I really do appreciate you guys checking out this video and these live streams. It means so much to me, and I know it means a lot to Blake as well. So, as always, hopefully you guys have a great evening. Hopefully you have a fantastic morning. whenever you are watching this. And I appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC. Have a good day.